The scent of magnolia drifted through the half-opened windows of the Larkspur and Finch Tea Emporium, mingling with ribbons of steam that curled from polished silver kettles. Outside, Willoughby's cobblestone lanes wore garlands of pastel lanterns for the Spring Blossom Festival, but inside the shop every surface gleamed with quiet anticipation. Rosemary Hale, rosy to everyone but the bank, stood on a wooden step-stool, tying a fresh sprig of thyme to a crate of bone china cups. Her aunt, Imogen Finch, bustled behind the marble counter, smoothing the sleeves of a lavender cardigan. 6 trays of rose-apple scones, Imogen said, checking off a clipboard. 2 of orange poppy seed, and, good heavens, where is the box of candied violets? In the pantry. Rosie hopped down, dusting flour from her palms. Top shelf behind the tins of Turkish Delight. Imogen's hazel eyes softened. What would I do without you? Probably survive on peppermint bark and pure willpower, Rosie teased. But the question is, are we ready for the judges? Amelia Chen arrives in, she glanced at the wall clock, less than 2 hours. Imogen's fingers went unconsciously to the antique key that dangled from a ribbon around her neck. As ready as one can be when debuting the Aurora Bloom. Rosie felt a flicker of thrill. The Aurora Bloom, a whisper-light blend of first-night blossoms from the luminaria tree, had not been tasted in Willoughby for 30 years. The old groves bloomed for only 3 nights each spring, and harvesting them required precise timing and permission from the historical society that managed the town's wildflower conservancy. Aunt Imogen had secured 3 precious ounces. Enough, the festival board hoped, for 1 ceremonial pot and perhaps 2 small refills for the judges' notes. "Shall I fetch it?" Rosie asked. Imogen shook her head. "Not yet. It stays locked in the ironwood chest until moments before steeping. If rumour escaped that we'd begun portioning it out, Eloise Hart would fling open her pop-up stall reading Rare Blossom Flights, half price." Rosie grinned at the mention of their friendly rival, but her aunt's smile held a tremor of nerves. The tea community was supportive, yet accolades mattered. The festival's best Blossom Brew crown came with a handshake from the mayor, a gilt filigreed plaque, and an entire year of tourist interest. A brass bell jangled as the shop door swung inward, letting in a breeze that smelled of fresh rain on brick. Jasper Green stepped inside, brushing pollen from his gardener's overalls. "Morning, Finch ladies," Rosie waved. Jasper oversaw Willoughby's municipal gardens and had delivered buckets of tulips earlier that week. Often silent as moss, the tall man carried a gentle sadness after losing his father last autumn. "Have a scone before you dash," Imogen offered. "Can't. The Conservancy asked me to check luminaria saplings at Miller's Field. Frogs keep nesting under them." He gave a self-conscious shrug. "Figured I'd drop this off first." From a canvas satchel he produced a bundle of rosemary and soft pink apple blossoms tied with hemp twine. "For the tables." Imogen clasped his hand. "Perfect. Thank you, Jasper." Rosie noticed Jasper glance toward the storeroom door, where the ironwood chest supposedly sat. But when Imogen turned to speak to a customer, Jasper tipped an invisible cap to Rosie and left. She dismissed it. Jasper was simply proud of the blooms he protected. By noon, the shop was alive with festival goers sampling floral blends: violet Earl Grey, jasmine silver needle, orchid oolong. Martin Biddle, the portly town historian, lounged in a wingback chair sipping chamomile while reciting obscure dates of Willoughby's founding to anyone within earshot. Peter Gray, the delivery driver, rolled a dolly stacked with crates of porcelain. And Eloise Hart, resplendent in a peach satin dress, swept in bearing a box of lavender macarons for dear competition. Yet behind the bustle, Imogen kept her ironwood chest locked and under watch. Rosie saw the old key glint each time it swung from her aunt's ribbon. At 1 o'clock, the festival bell tolled from the village green, signalling a lull before judge inspections. Imogen pulled Rosie aside. Time to decant half a teaspoon for the preliminary aroma test. Judges want proof of authenticity before final steeping. The pair slipped through the storeroom door. Sunlight from a clear story window sliced across neat stacks of gunpowder tins, dried hibiscus petals, and Keeman bricks. Against the far wall, on a small cedar pedestal, rested the ironwood chest. Imogen knelt, inserted the key, and lifted the lid. The scent hit Rosie first, sharp, almost medicinal, like dandelion stems and burnt orange peel. Inside, instead of silvery white blossoms dusted with moonlight pollen, lay a heap of tawny leaves. And not fresh, some edges crumbled to dust. Imogen stared, blanching. This isn't the aurora bloom. Rosie pinched a fragment. It's been dyed to mimic the petals, but the smell, so bitter. Imogen sagged onto a crate. Someone's replaced it. Rosie's mind surged into gear. The imitator tea, if brewed, would blister the judges' tongues. Worse, whispers of fraud could shutter the emporium for good. She inhaled, forcing calm. We'll solve this, Auntie. First, lock the door. Imogen relatched the chest, though there was nothing precious left inside. Rosie paced. Suspects? The tea had been under lock, yet the key never left Imogen's neck. Unless someone appropriated a spare, none existed, or used sleight of hand to borrow the original. Rosie recalled Jasper's fleeting glance. Peter with easy access to crates and hallways. Eloise Hart's teasing gifts. Martin Biddle's obsession with rare artifacts. Too many possibilities. We need proof, Rosie whispered. And we need genuine aurora bloom before 3. Otherwise we withdraw and the festival assumes foul play anyway. Imogen pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. There might be an ounce remaining at the Conservancy storehouse, but they'd never release more without Jasper's authorization. Rosie frowned. Then we must locate Jasper. Imogen agreed to distract festival officials for half an hour. Rosie grabbed her waxed cotton jacket and slipped into the street. Cherry petals drifted like snowflakes along the riverside path. Food vendors hawked violet candy floss. Children wove daisy chains. Rosie crossed the footbridge toward Miller's Field, where luminaria trees glimmered pale pink under a cloudless sky. She spotted Jasper kneeling beside a sapling, adjusting a mesh barrier. "Jasper," she called. He rose, wiping dirt on his pant leg. "Rosie, didn't expect you out here." She offered a tight smile. "Neither did I, but circumstances changed. Someone swapped our aurora bloom for something awful." She watched his face. Jasper's jaw slackened. "That's terrible. We think a thief plans to ruin Aunt Imogen's entry. The festival trusts your stewardship of the flowers. Could you authorize releasing the spare ounce to us? It might salvage the judge's tasting." Jasper bent toward the sapling again, voice low. "Rosie, harvesting more blooms isn't the answer. The luminaria groves are exhausted. Each blossom removed means fewer seeds. But the festival has become commerce in disguise." He looked at her fully. "Your aunt means well, but others turn heritage into profit. Maybe losing this year's crown would remind them the trees matter more." Rosie's pulse skipped. "Are you implying you took the tea?" Jasper's shoulders stiffened. "No, I'm saying I won't help pick more." He lifted a watering can, concluding the conversation. Rosie left with nerves buzzing. Jasper's philosophy aligned with sabotage, yet his refusal to supply more tea didn't prove he'd stolen the original. She needed further evidence. As she returned to the main square, she nearly collided with Peter Gray, unloading crates outside Eloise Hart's stall. A gust of wind rattled an empty tin that rolled to her feet. Rosie picked it up, matte black with gold lettering, Bergamot Ceylon. A faint residue of bright orange dust clung to the interior. She remembered the sharp citrus note in the imitation blend. Peter noticed her curiosity. "Those tins are headed for recycling. Mind if I keep this one?" she asked lightly. "Suit yourself." He wiped sweat from his brow and wrestled another crate onto the pavement. Rosie turned the tin in her hands. Could Eloise have laced her bergamot black tea into imitation petals for bitterness? She ducked around the tent where Eloise chatted with two tourists, extolling the virtues of her violet-white peony infusion. Rosie's gaze swept a row of sample jars. None resembled the forged leaves. But in a waste bin behind the stall lay paper towels streaked with orange dye. Eloise noticed Rosie hovering. "Looking for inspiration?" Rosie forced a chuckle. "No, looking for Aurora Bloom. Someone pinched ours." Eloise's eyebrows arched. "Oh, darling, first rule of festival secrets, hide them from prying eyes." Her tone implied both sympathy and delight. "I assure you I'm much too busy to meddle, though." Rosie scanned Eloise's stall once more. Everything smelled of lavender and honey, none of the bitter dandelion scent. And Eloise's delight was genuine, but not guilty. Rosie dropped the bergamot tin into her satchel and returned toward the tea shop. Inside, she found Imogen serving hibiscus punch to tourists, smile fixed but wan. Martin Biddle perched at the bar, cradling a stack of crumbling documents. "I've uncovered a ledger from 1873, he announced, detailing the original Luminaria harvesting laws. Fascinating how they regulated blossom counts by weight." Rosie's attention snagged. "Regulations?" She leaned in. "Mr. Biddle, may I see?" The historian preened. "Of course, this line especially. To preserve tree vigour, any citizen exceeding his allotment is subject to fine." Rather forward thinking for the era. Rosie skimmed the page and thanked him. As she returned the ledger, she noticed flecks of tawny particles on Martin's tweed cuff, similar to those in the ironwood chest. She inhaled, a trace of bitter rind. "Have you been sampling unusual teas today?" she asked. Martin blinked. "Why, yes. Jasper gave me a rustic infusion earlier. Said it was Luminaria leaf itself, steeped like yerba mate. Quite bracing, though I admit it cured my drowsiness." Rosie's thoughts whirred. Jasper again. Giving away leaf infusion to Martin meant he'd prepared larger quantities of processed leaves. Enough to swap with Aurora Bloom inside the chest. She excused herself, motioning to Imogen to meet in the pantry. Once the door clicked shut, Rosie laid out clues. Jasper's ecological objections, opportunity during his morning flower delivery, evidence of luminous leaf dust on Martin's sleeve. Imogen listened, eyes moist. "Jasper has been like family since your uncle died. I can't imagine malice." "Maybe not malice," Rosie said, "but motive to protect the trees. If he took the real tea, where would he hide it? Somewhere cool, away from prying festival eyes." She looked at the ironwood chest. What if Jasper never intended permanent loss, only to prevent its use? Rosie opened the chest again. Beneath the pile of bitter leaves, she probed the seams, and her fingers touched thin linen. She lifted it. Inside a false bottom nestled a cloth sachet. She untied the string. Silvery petals glittered like snowfall in sunlight. Imogen gasped, tears pooling. The aurora bloom. Rosie's heartbeat hammered. He didn't destroy it, only concealed it beneath a decoy. If we hadn't investigated, we'd have served the substitute, failed, and likely sworn off the real brew. Imogen sank onto a stool. Why not just talk to me? Rosie's anger softened. Grief muddles judgment. Maybe he feared refusal. They had the tea, but a moral knot remained. Serve it anyway, ignoring Jasper's concern, or honour the tree's well-being. Imogen rose, determination in her spine. Go fetch Jasper, we'll speak plainly. Minutes later, Rosie found him behind the greenhouse near Miller's field, transplanting seedlings. Jasper, she said, breathless, please come, we uncovered your decoy. Mud spattered across his boots as he stood. You found the sachet. So you admit? Yes. He removed dirt-streaked gloves. I couldn't bear the blooms poured into porcelain for show. I thought if I hid them, you'd brew the decoy, lose the contest, and the grove would rest next year. Rosie exhaled. We understand your worry, but your method nearly ruined Aunt Imogen's livelihood. Regret clouded his eyes. I see that now. Come face her. They walked back. In the quiet pantry, Imogen waited beside a porcelain gaiwan. Jasper met her gaze. I'm sorry. Imogen's voice trembled. Why didn't you talk to me? You know how much I value the conservancy. I suppose, he sighed. I've felt unheard lately. Since Dad, the board signs harvest permits like receipts. I wanted just one person to listen. Imogen took his calloused hand. I'm listening. Let's find a solution together. Will 2 grams suffice for judging? His startled expression melted into cautious hope. 2 grams would be sparing. He glanced at Rosie. But only if next season we host an educational tasting. No harvest, just stories and photos, and profits donated to tree propagation. Imogen nodded. Agreed, and you'll help present. A gentle silence settled, broken only by the kettle's breathy whistle. Rosie weighed exactly 2 grams of the aurora bloom onto a bamboo scale. Petals shimmered like frost. In the tea room, Emilia Chen and the other judges arrived, clipboards ready. Tourists hushed. Imogen approached the central table. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, we present a modest pour of aurora bloom, harvested with utmost respect for the luminaria. Jasper, sleeves now clean, stood beside her holding a sprig of living blossom. Imogen rinsed the gaiwan, added the petals, and poured water cooled to precisely 81 degrees Celsius. The room filled with ethereal fragrance, honeysuckle kissed by moonlight, a faint whisper of apricot. Rosie watched judges lift porcelain cups, eyes widening. Emilia's pen halted mid-air. A smile curved her lips. Balance, she murmured. Delicacy. A haunting finish of wildflower honey. Applause rippled through patrons. Eloise Hart, to her credit, joined the clapping, cheeks rosy with appreciation. Martin Biddle dabbed a tear. Certain history was being made anew. After tasting, the judges retired to tally results. Rosie busied herself wiping counters, adrenaline draining. She caught Jasper's thankful nod across the room. 20 minutes later, Mayor Caldwell climbed onto a dais erected outside the shop, flower garlands swaying in late afternoon sun. The Spring Blossom Festival's Golden Kettle Award, he boomed, goes to Larkspur and Finch for their aurora bloom. Cheer erupted. Imogen clasped the gilt plaque but shook her head, lifting a hand. Thank you, Mayor. I accept, yet today's honour belongs equally to Jasper Green, whose stewardship of our town's blossoms ensured authenticity and sustainability. Jasper's cheeks flushed as the crowd applauded anew. He stepped forward awkwardly. I only wish to protect what we cherish. The mayor pinned a silver leaf lapel to Jasper's overalls. Consider it official recognition. That evening, after lanterns flickered to life along Willoughby's main street, Rosie sat at a wrought-iron table outside the tea shop. She cradled a cup of simple chamomile, not rare but comforting. Imogen joined her, setting down a saucer of lemon shortbread. "You solved the case, Rosie," her aunt said, pride evident. "I had help, from dusty ledgers and guilty flecks." Imogen chuckled. "Still, without your quick mind, we'd be serving dandelion sludge and drafting apologies." Rosie looked into the lamplight where Jasper and Peter arranged leftover scones for the late-night crowd. Children twirled beneath paper lanterns. Music wafted from a fiddle. "I'm glad we found balance," she said. "Heritage and harmony side by side." Imogen raised her cup. "To spring's fragile blossoms, and to the people who guard them, even if it takes a mystery to understand their hearts." Rosie clinked her rim gently against her aunt's. Steam curled upward, sweet, warm and promising, into the night sky over Willoughby, where luminaria petals glowed softly under the moon.